Hi, and welcome to our Cyber and Cloud Expo webinar on 5 top cybersecurity work from home productivity enhancements. This webinar is brought to you by Experis, which is part of the Manpower Group, along with Talent Solutions and the Manpower brands. I am Sunil Bothra, the Managing Director and Head of Experis Consulting, and my colleague who represents Experis Portugal is Pedro Amorim, the Managing Director. The first thing I want to talk to you about is the shape of the organizations prior, during, and after COVID-19. On the left, you can see an illustration of a typical organization before COVID-19. The blue part represents on-site workers. The orange part are hybrid workers on-site and outside the premises of the company. The red circle represents 100% remote employees. During COVID-19, the shape of companies changed and the red and orange parts grew bigger and the blue part became smaller. Obviously, as the shape of the company changed, the surface area became bigger on which the hackers started attacking companies. And in fact, in certain cases, cyber attacks went up by 500% on organizations during COVID-19. Looking at the current trends and how companies are now committing to keeping most of their employees remote forever, it looks very likely that we are not going to have a new normal, but an extension of what is happening right now. So it is very likely that the organizations of the future after COVID-19 look more like the image in the center of your screen rather than how they used to look like a few months ago before COVID-19. We at Experis believe that companies lose clients and users when cyber attacks are successful. So how does work from home cybersecurity help with client retention? Let's first look at the difference between what clients believe and what is the real truth regarding cyber attacks. Clients believe that the crisis is over and cybersecurity budgets can safely be cut back to the level that they were before the pandemic started. But unfortunately, as you saw in the image I showed you earlier, the post-pandemic new normal will become more similar to the situation during the pandemic. We are not going to have a new normal. So I recommend that clients should be careful and wary of exposing themselves and their clients or the client's data and privacy to hackers. Clients believe that the worst is over, that they are lucky that they were not attacked during the pandemic. But unfortunately, this is difficult to believe because it takes an organization over 6 months to detect that they have been attacked. In fact, 1 out of 2 organizations never actually detect that they have been hacked. According to IBM, the cost of a cybersecurity breach last year, on average across the world, was nearly $4 million. Another thing that the clients believe is that they are ready for the post-pandemic phase, that they have achieved a secure state of remote work and BYOD in their company. Unfortunately, security is not a state that can be achieved. It is not a state at all. In fact, it is a state of continuous change. So please be careful when you look at security like a checklist exercise. It is something that you have to do and keep doing over and over again. Now, companies might be feeling pretty safe not having full visibility or understanding of the risks of cybersecurity on their businesses. In fact, in reality, if you look at the examples on your screen, Portuguese companies were hacked and real damage happened in Portugal. Share prices were hit, schools were disrupted, many companies suffered financial impact, loss of business, and loss of sensitive data. All the way from startups right up to the biggest companies in Portugal, such as Garmin and Enhancements de Portugal, were made a target by hackers. No company in Portugal at the moment is safe, and cyber attacks are on the rise in Portugal. This is the reality, immaterial of what clients believe regarding the safety of their organization. I just mentioned Enhancements de Portugal, so let's dig a little bit deeper and try to understand what really happened there. It is suspected that in their case, hackers were able to enter into the network of Enhancements de Portugal through a potential weakness in their VPN systems. It is also suspected that the hackers stayed on the systems for quite a while, stealing a large quantity of Energia's data. After that, they infected the systems with a type of crypto virus called ransomware. That disabled Energias de Portugal's systems completely, with a demand of ransom of nearly $10 million. The hackers even threatened Energias by saying that if you do not pay a ransom to them, they would either sell or publicly disclose all the data that they had stolen from the company. This was a big shock to the system in Portugal, and it happened right at the beginning of the pandemic period. In fact, from then on, cyber attacks in Portugal have actually grown really fast. And in many cases, they've grown faster than the average growth rate of cyber attacks across the rest of Europe or even the wider world. So let me go back to how I think cybersecurity could help you retain your customers. Here's some advice. Number one, I recommend that you should audit remote work and bring your own device regularly within your organization. Also, when you find the problems, do mitigate these risks and their related risks continuously. Do not do this as a checklist exercise, which means do it once and then forget about it. This has to be a continuous cycle of improvement. The safest course of action for long-term work from home is a repeatable, robust audit and mitigation process within your organization for remote work and bring your own device cybersecurity risks. Do create a cyber training and awareness program within your organization, which is based on real-world cyber attacks from the 90 days prior to that training, rather than some out-of-the-box training that you can buy from the market. A training based on real examples would be much more relevant because those are the attacks that your employees are probably going to face in real life. I would also recommend that you re-evaluate your cyber budget periodically. Just reducing the budget will not solve your wider problem. Cyber attacks are growing, so a reduction in the cyber budget would be counterproductive in my personal opinion. I also recommend that you perform a full risk analysis of your organization before just going out there and buying any hardware or software solutions that promise that they can fix the world. Many antivirus and firewall and similar security products promise that they can do much more than they really can. So do a risk analysis, understand your organization's risk, and then decide which hardware, software, and services solutions are the best for your organization. This is the secret of protecting your organization and your customers and retaining them. We at Experis believe that productivity of staff goes up when stress levels go down. So how does work from home cybersecurity help reduce employee stress? Let's have a look at an interesting phenomenon that has started growing during COVID-19 lockdowns. As more and more people work from home, or even in hybrid scenarios of working from home and office, this has now started producing impact on physical and mental health of employees. In fact, this is such a big problem now that even organizations such as the World Health Organization have dedicated an entire section of their website looking at the impact of COVID-19 on people's health. Large news outlets such as the BBC have started reporting on the profound mental health impacts of COVID-19 on employees. A recent research by Gartner also demonstrated the correlation between professional well-being and the psychological safety. A recent study by IBM threw light on a very shocking revelation. They found that human error was the cause of nearly 95% of successful cyber breaches. In other words, this meant that only 1 out of 20 cyber attacks happened out of pure chance, but in fact 19 out of 20 attacks happened due to human error. Now, if you can expand human error into two components, that which is innocent human error, whether due to lack of training or just human error caused by a lack of attention, but on the other side you've also got the other aspect of the human problem, which is insider threat of employees who are putting their own organization at danger on purpose. In fact, a recent survey by the Ponemon Institute revealed that insider threats in 2020 have grown by nearly 50%, and the cost of insider threats have gone up by 31% in organizations across the world. So we propose our own hypothesis. We say that prolonged work from home over a long term could be highly risky for your organization and your employees because it could negatively impact employee mental health, which could potentially lead to two different risks in your organization. The first risk is that you could have an increased occurrence of human error. On the other side, you could have also the higher opportunity for deliberate sabotage from those who might behave as insiders. Both these risks put together could open your organization to an entirely new area of larger risks, which is bigger and bigger data breaches. Because, and we go back to the top of the design, prolonged work from home over long terms could be highly risky for your organization. So how do we recommend that you reduce the stress levels of your employees so as to increase your organization's productivity? It is becoming quite common now that organizations are hiring remote employees directly remotely to stay remote for the long term. In these cases, it is recommended for organizations to provide cybersecurity training not just to their existing staff, but those employees that are going to be forever remote. It is also advisable to get some cybersecurity certification for your organization so as to assure your clients that you are a safe and responsible organization. We also recommend to hire contractors and employees in your organization, especially those that deal with the IT systems, to have some level of cybersecurity certification already, because they would be most likely to protect your organization. We also recommend extending existing health and safety programs within your organization to cover the remote staff working from home. This would help you attract better talent as you go forward, because you would look like a caring company to them, but at the same time it would also reduce your liability, because even though the employees might be working from home, you still have a legal liability towards their health and safety while they are working for you. Your employees in general are only as good as the money you pay for them. That doesn't mean you need to pay a lot of money to get the best employees without any specific business case behind it. We do recommend to get the support from a good human resources company like Experis, like the Manpower Group, to support you in this process so that you can get the best employees at the best possible prices. We recommend including mental health assessments as part of your work from home staff health and safety periodic reviews. You need to be aware that remote work and hybrid work are now causing a big impact on employee health and safety. You need to make this a part of your regular review process now. The world has changed and you need to adapt accordingly to be competitive in the market. We also recommend including cybersecurity and insider threat assessments, particularly as part of your remote work staff audit process. It would be advisable to update staff cybersecurity training with the most successful cyber attack examples from the 90 days prior to providing that training to those employees. Very old examples may not be any relevant anymore. It's better to use latest examples to teach people how to survive in the case of a cyber attack. We do recommend protecting your employees because logically they would protect your organization if you protected them first. Deploy a work from home staff communication and support plan to help you achieve this goal. When we looked at the successful ransomware attacks around the world, we also found at the same time that company share prices and sales also suffered at the same time. So how can organizations protect their brand and profitability through a remote work cybersecurity policy? Let's first start by understanding how ransomware really works. The most common way in which it can get into your systems is by an email attachment or a link in an email that points to a website which invites you to download and install some software. Whether you click on that attachment or download and install that software, infection starts happening on your computer. As this infection spreads across your network, it also starts communicating with the hacker's server and starts downloading instructions on what to do next. That next stage normally looks like the ransomware trying to look for valuable assets on your organization's network. These could be important documents such as JPEGs, docs, Excel files, PowerPoints, PDFs, and so on. Once it locates these files, it starts encrypting these files and deleting them. After that, a message is displayed on your screen asking or demanding you to pay a ransom to the hackers, otherwise you would not be able to access your systems or have your data back. Let's try to understand the risk of ransomware in real terms. Recent research by Cybersecurity Ventures predicted that 2020 is already the year of ransomware, but they also think that 2021 would be even worse. They're thinking that a new business will fall victim to ransomware attacks every 11 seconds by next year. Ransomware payouts, which is the amount of ransom demanded for ransomware attacks, is already in the regions of hundreds of thousands of dollars, or in some cases even in the millions of dollars, which is a 33% increase from last year. And since during COVID-19 the number of ransomware attacks has grown exponentially, this is now becoming the biggest cybersecurity risk to real business, sales, and brands right now in today's context. Ransomware has become such a big problem that, in fact, in 2019's SEC filings from up to 1,000 listed companies, it was found that organizations were now listing ransomware as a business risk rather than a cybersecurity risk. In fact, the risk is so big that there are organizations out there that have cropped up that are now pretending to be brokers between the organizations that have been hacked and the ransomers, and they charge a fee to help the organizations recover their data. This is not a robust ecosystem because often these companies are not legitimate, and often even if you pay the hackers, you don't always get your data back. So really we are in a catch-22 situation. If you pay the hackers or these brokers, you lose your money and your data and your clients and your business and brand reputation. But if you don't pay them, you also lose. So how do you break this loop? The best situation or solution would be not to owe any money to the hackers, and this can be done by protecting your organization in the first place. Let's dig a little bit deeper and try to understand the real impact of data breaches on company share prices. Recently, Centrify, a security company, commissioned a research into the stock market performance of 100+ organizations that had recently suffered a data breach. Their criteria for the research was that these organizations had lost at least 50,000 user records, which included user passwords and credit card payment details. In each of these organizations' cases, they had notified the regulatory organizations of the successful attack. They had also communicated with the victims, reminding them that their data had been lost, and all these attacks had featured in the news media. The key findings were quite shocking. The valuation of stock of each of these 113 organizations declined by at least 5% on average following the disclosure of the breach that had occurred. And in fact, it took an average of at least 45 days for their share prices to return back to normal after the attack. So, how to protect your organization against ransomware attacks and other types of cybersecurity breaches that could impact your brand reputation and market profitability, including share prices and sales? Firstly, you need a robust training and awareness program. Like I've mentioned previously, this has got to be relevant with examples of cyber attacks from the 90 days preceding the training that you built and delivered. We recommend that you keep all your software updated, and this also includes the firmware on your hardware in the organization. Teach your employees to be very careful of document macros and attachments in emails. Teach them how to know exactly what phishing looks like. We can help you as an organization in training your staff in recognizing a social engineering attack from a normal email. Keep your antivirus and firewall systems up to date. They may not be able to prevent attacks from viruses that they do not recognize because they are signature and behavior-based systems, but they will still keep you protected against those threats that are known to the world. Keep backups. Make recovery tests from these backups to check if these backups actually work. Just having your data on the cloud does not mean you are protected against ransomware. Remember, if you get attacked, there are two risks. One, it will take you time to recover the data from the cloud, therefore there might be business disruption. And the second is that if your cloud systems are connected to your normal systems, when your normal systems get attacked by ransomware, in many cases we've seen that the cloud systems are also infected just because they are connected to each other. We would recommend that you limit user privileges to the minimum levels required within your organizations. Over time, as people progress within an organization, their privileges seem to accumulate, and it's best if you do an audit that reduces these privileges to the minimum required levels based on their current job needs. Also, it is recommended that you segregate and divide your network so as to stop access bleed. If ransomware were to attack a certain part of your network, in a segmented network, that attack would be contained within that segment and not exfiltrate into the rest of your organization as well. In Experis, we believe that huge savings can be achieved by organizations that can get their communication strategy and communications protection strategy perfectly aligned and right. So how does work from home cybersecurity help an organization save money? Well, a good cybersecurity communication strategy could not only help you save money, but could also help you prevent losses. So let's look at what kind of losses companies might have faced in the last few months. When the COVID-19 pandemic started, immediately a lot of people had to be sent to work from home. So there was an immediate explosion in the necessity for good communication tools. And at the forefront of this revolution was Zoom, a software provider that supplied its software to millions of users around the world to be able to communicate safely. It is perhaps possible that Zoom at that particular point in time was not robust enough for such a large expansion in user base. In fact, it got hacked quite immediately at the beginning of the pandemic, and user accounts for nearly 500,000 users were lost and were being sold or distributed freely across the dark web by hackers. In fact, the hackers were also selling the software for hacking Zoom users to other hackers for amounts as high as $500,000 apiece. Of course, Zoom fixed the vulnerability and produced a latest version of their software that solved this problem at that time. But the problem was that many organizations did not update their software, so the vulnerable software was still installed on millions and millions of computers around the world. And even in the case of organizations that updated their software, well, the hackers, seeing the great demand for Zoom in the world, created new attack strategies for attacking the latest version of Zoom. So this was like a cat and mouse game. Now, I'm not particularly either endorsing or example that a communication strategy without a successful cybersecurity strategy at the bottom could be very dangerous for organization, as large amounts of private confidential conversations and data could be lost. In fact, other communication channels such as Telegram, WhatsApp, and Teams even were hacked as well during the COVID-19 period. So here are some tips on how to protect your communications channel. Update your software to the latest version, whichever this software is. Remote patch your staff's computers and remind the participants who will be on your calls to do the same. Do not use personal meeting IDs. Always generate a random ID for the meetings that you create that you publicly share with other participants, outside your organization especially. Mute participants so that they cannot disrupt meetings. Disable participants' cameras. This mitigates problems like Zoom bombing, where unwelcome participants joined calls and then disrupted these through vulgar messages or imagery. Use waiting rooms efficiently. Filter participants. Make sure that people wait before the host joins, for example. You can also limit screen sharing to the host only. This also mitigates the problem of Zoom bombing. The same applies to the problem that Teams had, where people should have been prevented from sharing animated GIFs, especially those that contained a virus that could hack the Teams software. You can also disable the feature which disables people from joining before the host. This prevents unwanted guests from joining your Zoom calls or other types of calls. Please set strong passwords for all your meetings rather than small, simple, easy to discover passwords. And also turn on your encryption features. And lastly, I would recommend that you restrict the recording function only to those that are authorized to do the same. And remember as well, if you are recording meetings, there could be GDPR liability. So please make sure that all users are aware that you're recording that call with them on it. If we talk about how organizations can save money by implementing good cybersecurity practices, we should also talk about how organizations could prevent losses from happening through good cybersecurity practices. VPNs have been in the news for all the right and wrong reasons in the last 6 months. They've been a great enabler of communication, but at the same time, they've had their own problems. Public VPNs like NordVPN and Express and so on, that domain has also had its own problems. Hackers in many cases have created websites that look very much like the websites of the software that I've just mentioned. Then these hackers have gone and sent out emails or newsletters that pretended to be from these original VPN companies. Because the emails looked so legitimate, many users have clicked on these emails and gone to the hacker's website, which incidentally looks the same as the website of the real VPN providers. On these hacked websites, users have used their credit card details to pay for infected software that they have then downloaded on their computers and installed. Even then, it's very difficult to detect this problem because this software actually does behave like a VPN, but at the background, it is also stealing your data or infecting your computer with ransomware. So this has become a big trend now. On the other side, some VPNs have lied about their policies on retaining your user logs. So privacy is a big problem these days with VPNs, and in many cases, the VPN providers have been found lacking through investigative journalism, and it was discovered that they were actually keeping these logs and maybe selling them on to other people as well. Well, commercial grade VPNs have also had their problem. Pulse VPN got hacked during COVID-19, and even though they fixed their problem, they were hacked again, and this has gone on to become a cat and mouse game now. So VPNs could be a drain on your profitability if this problem remained within your organization. On the other side, of course, even if you are using VPN to enhance privacy in your organization, it could well be that you might be logged into your browser. So in my particular example here, I was using a VPN, I was on Chrome browser, logged in to my Gmail, but I was definitely not using Google as a search engine. I was using DuckDuckGo. But because I was on Chrome and I was logged into Gmail, obviously, Google was able to completely see all my user behavior on its browser while I was logged in. So please be careful when you use VPNs, whether they are public grade, commercial grade, or when you're using a good VPN system that is not infected, but still exposing your data by being logged into your browser, for example. So how to protect your organization from the risks that I just mentioned regarding the VPN? Well, first of all, when using Wi-Fi networks publicly that are freely available, please be sure to use a VPN. Now, often, unfortunately, you'll find that these free Wi-Fi networks will try to block VPN connections because they'd like to collect user data. So be very careful about your choices on what to do when you are faced with a public and free Wi-Fi network. The same thing applies when you're in a hotel as well, by the way. When trying to buy or download personal VPN software, please do this only from authorized websites and vendors. So do not visit such sites by clicking on links in email messages or WhatsApp chats from friends. The best way would be to go on a browser search engine such as Google and then put in the name of the provider that you're after and then visit the website that way. Choose your browser carefully. I'm neither endorsing or criticizing Chrome as a browser. I'm just saying that remember that your browser might also be logging your browsing history and navigational private data. Mitigation is not easy even if logging into the browser is not occurring. Even then, choose your browser carefully for the purpose of your work. Privacy and logging are very important these days, so be careful of where your VPN data center is located. It may well be that you are in Europe and your data is being transited across the network of a VPN, which might be in China, that might not be in conformity with something like, for example, GDPR. If you're going to use this on a large scale across your organization, I do recommend either auditing your VPN provider or carefully studying the contract and SLA that they provide you with. If we speak about the risks of remote work and bring your own device on your company's bottom line, we cannot ignore the world of Internet of Things as well. As people work from home, they're going to be using printers and scanners and other kinds of virtual assistants in their environment. These also bring new risks into the organization. In fact, it is easier for hackers to hack into your printer and get into your system rather than attacking your organization's laptop. So this is a difficult risk to mitigate unless you can turn your printer off while you're not using it. The trend in the world right now is that DDoS or denial of service attacks are now shifting towards Internet of Things devices and mobile devices. In fact, the biggest denial of service attacks anywhere in the world have often used very simple small IoT devices in a large botnet, which is a network of these devices, to attack organizational systems. If you look at the image at the bottom right, where there's Mark Zuckerberg, who was caught on camera with a tape on his microphone and on his webcam on his laptop, if a person who deals with the private information of millions, if not billions of individuals around the world, has such low confidence on the ability of the devices at preserving his privacy and security, then I think you really, as a user, need to take a very good attention of what's happening around you. The devices that are in your home, whether they are part of your organization's provided laptop and hardware, are still part of your bring your own device landscape. Your virtual assistant like Siri, Alexa, and so on listen 24/7. There are systems like your laptops that are connected to printers and scanners that are on all the time. Even your smart fridge or the car that it could be smart and is parked in front of your home could be attacked these days, so the hackers could enter into your Wi-Fi systems and then attack all the rest of your interconnected systems at home. So how do you protect yourselves against the risks of your IoT devices at home? Well, first of all, change your Wi-Fi and router passwords regularly. Very few people actually do that. And the same applies to the passwords on all your smart devices at home. Remember that they are all interconnected through your Wi-Fi, and hackers could enter into this device that is easiest to hack and enter into your network through the Wi-Fi or your router and access all other devices that are interconnected. Use strong passwords and update the firmware on these hardware devices as much as possible. Switch smart devices off if you don't need them. Webcams, microphones, virtual private assistants like Siri, Alexa, Cortana deserve particular attention because otherwise they could be listening to you 24/7. If possible, enable IP filtering on your printers, which could mitigate data breaches. But otherwise, if you're not using smart Bluetooth or Wi-Fi enabled printers and scanners, turn them on because it is easier for hackers to enter into your systems through these devices than rather hacking your systems directly. Where possible, use encryption and use VPN software which allow encrypted data transfer and also guarantee privacy and log retention policies. When dealing with a large number of clients, we also found that smart passwords enhance productivity while overcomplicated password policies destroy productivity within organizations. So let me ask you a question. Which of the two passwords that you see on your screen is the stronger of the two? The first password looks very typical of the type of password that many organizations now require you to provide when you register on their websites for the first time. Uppercase letters, lowercase letters, numbers, and special characters. And the length of the password is between 8 to 16 numbers. Well, the second password that you see is not really a password. It looks like a phrase, and it's very simple. It's all lowercase letters, and it just says, "This is my password." Now, logic would dictate that the first password is stronger than the second one. But in truth, the second password or the passphrase is a lot stronger, many, many times stronger than the first example. And in fact, you can pause the video here and read through the technical explanation that explains why the second password is a lot better than the first one. But the point I'm trying to make is not this. The real point is that the second password is easier to remember and much harder to hack. And this is the reason why I personally recommend to use passphrases in your organizations rather than uselessly complicated password that could perhaps make it difficult for you to remember them. But as a solution to that, many people just go for easily guessable passwords which are made up of name, surname, and some memorable date, and that makes your organization and your users easily hackable by criminals out there. Another thing that is commonly happening right now is that when you go to a website and let's say you want to register for the first time, other than your personal details and your password, these websites are now asking you for some private information under the guise of, if you forget your password, they can use that information to recover your password in the future. Now, the problem with this is that you might actually be giving your really sensitive data to a large number of websites out there. They might be asking you for what your favorite car is, your favorite city, your favorite singer, even the place where you met your partner, or the city you were born, or your favorite restaurant. Now, they may look as innocent pieces of data, but if you can think of what multiple websites can do, or even hackers who hack a large number of websites can do, if they could collect all this data together. So my recommendation is stop sending your potential passwords or memorable data to people who can collect this information for social engineering purposes to attack you and harm you. On the right of your screen, what you can see are the top 25 passwords across the world over 2019. These are also very similar to the passwords that people in Portugal used in the last year. Now, as you can guess, the top 25 most used passwords can be hacked by hackers in less than a second. My recommendation to you is do not use passwords that look like the ones on the right, because you will be putting yourselves and your organization at great risk. We are very close to the end of our presentation, and I thank you for listening to me, but I wanted to leave you with one last very important thought before I presented you with our products. I want to ask you this honest question. When was the last time you changed the password on your home router? And this is something that nearly no one does in the world. Home routers are hardware that is built by a very small number of manufacturers around the world, and because they make millions and millions of these devices that are then installed into people's homes and offices by a number of engineers who cannot remember these passwords if they were all different. So what these router manufacturers do is that they put the password at the back of the router in printed format. Most people in the world, nearly 90% unfortunately, never change the default password on their router. These passwords, as you can imagine, would take less than a minute for any hacker to guess. So if you think about it, while you're working from home, your router could be with a very default and easy to hack passwords that hackers could be getting into easily and then accessing your entire Wi-Fi and your entire network along with your company provided laptop and mobile phone. So be very careful. Your Wi-Fi, your home router, and your printer are also part of your bring your own device. Private emails used for company purposes are also part of your BYOD landscape. Any insecure or unencrypted file exchange or communication channels are also part of your BYOD landscape. And any insecure software or mobile devices that you might be using on your company devices could also be part of your BYOD landscape and might be opening your organization and yourself to big cybersecurity risks, including ransomware. So just be careful that feeling safe and being safe are two very different things. We've talked about some very relevant themes that are touching all organizations around the world today, and especially in Portugal as well. Organizations are looking at increasing productivity, but they're also looking at reducing costs. They need to manage their share prices, their brand reputation, their sales processes. They need to protect their communication channels and the health and safety of their employees as they work from home. They need to also reduce complexity where possible. So obviously, services that are relevant to this particular scenario would be the most useful to you. And in fact, Experis can help support your organization in that journey. Our small and medium company service, which is called the 5-day remote work and BYOD cyber service, can support organizations below 250 employees. I'm going to give you the details of that in a second. And also, a tailored version of the same service can support larger organizations. In the slide deck that you will receive along with this webinar, you can refer to these services on pages 32 and 33, where we talk about the 5-day service in great detail, of all the activities that will be conducted and all the deliverables you will receive from that service in those 5 days, and also the tailored version of the same service for larger organizations. In our slide deck, you'll also find some information about our organization and our long-standing reputation in helping organizations just like yours in achieving sustainable competitive advantage in the market. On the last page of the slide deck, you'll also find some useful information on how to get in touch with us so that we can start a conversation around how we can find the most strategic and cost-efficient way of helping your company achieve the results that we have spoken about during this entire presentation. I would like to thank you so much for listening to me during this webinar. I hope it was informative and useful for you, and you can take away nice, useful, applicable messages back to your company. I just want to leave you with one last message. COVID-19 has been a virus that has changed our lives. We are fed up of it. Don't give your company a different kind of virus as well through your information technology channel. I wish you the best of luck, and I hope to communicate with you in the near future. Experis is here to support you through this journey and make you more competitive, safe, and secure, both from your own perspective, but also from your users and customers' perspective as well. So good luck, and speak to you soon.